Good afternoon. We are gathered for one very important reason. We care about students and are steadfast in our commitment to provide every opportunity for their success. We want to ensure student success. It is our role as educators to advocate for our students and also for public education. I am Bonnie Kane, Superintendent of the Waco Independent School District, and I am joined by my colleagues at 28 other public and charter school districts in the Central Texas area. I would like to take just a minute to introduce the districts represented here and ask each to just stand briefly so you can recognize them, and I will go through the list. Aquila ISD, Dr. David Edison. Axtell ISD, Dr. J.R. Proctor. Bosqueville ISD, James Skeeler. Brooksmith ISD, Steve Mickelson. Bruceville Eddy ISD, Richard Kilgore. China Spring ISD, Dr. Mark Faulkner. Coolidge ISD, Dr. Robert Lowry. Connolly ISD, Wesley Holt. Coppers Cove ISD, Dr. Joe Burns. Corsicana ISD, Kim Holcomb. Crawford ISD, Kenneth Hall. Gatesville ISD, Eric Penrod. Hamilton ISD, Clay Tarpley. Jonesboro ISD, Matt Dawsey. Killeen ISD, Dr. John Kraft. La Vega ISD, Dr. Sharon Shields. Lorena ISD, Dr. Joe Cusera. McGregor ISD, Kevin Houchin. Midway ISD, Dr. George Kazanis. Moody ISD, Gary Martell. Mullen ISD, John Clausen. Rappaport Academy, Dr. Alexis Newman. Robinson ISD, Dr. Michael Hope. Rogers ISD, Joe Craig. Temple ISD, Dr. Robin Battershell. Troy ISD, Neil Jeter. Valley Mills ISD, Dr. Judy Whitus. Wortham ISD, David Allen. We are 29 school districts, both public and charter, uniting to speak out against the state's new A to F rating system. To give a little background, in 2015, the 84th legislature enacted House Bill 2804. This legislation resulted in the A to F rating system for public school districts and campuses to be implemented September 1, 2017. Until then, districts will be measured under the current accountability system. The report released by the Texas Education Agency is meant to provide districts and the public an idea of how the new A to F rating system will work when it is finalized. Today, TEA released the letter grades that Texas schools and districts would have received for the 2015-16 school year if the rating system had been in place. After reviewing the A to F rankings, we find this accountability system does not provide an accurate grade of our schools. Under this rating system, schools that previously met standard by TEA would currently be considered by TEA with a D or an F. As educators, we believe in accountability, we believe in decision-making that is data-driven, and we believe in continuous improvement. But we also believe in fundamental fairness. We want to be well represented by the grade given to us. I would like to ask Dr. John Kraft, the superintendent of Killeen, to provide a few comments as well. Dr. Kraft?
All right, well, good afternoon. I would first and foremost like to also thank Region 12 for hosting this conversation this afternoon. I'd like to thank my fellow colleagues for joining us in this conversation, and of course our media and press for being here today. As Dr. Kane indicated, the A through F proposed accountability system presents some challenges that I would like to briefly speak on. Accountability, as Dr. Kane indicated, I don't think that you will find a superintendent here in this room, a public educator in the room that doesn't believe in accountability. In fact, a system of accountability that is implemented with fidelity produces that continuous improvement for which all students can reap the benefits. And so what should this accountability system look like? I believe that schools and districts are really a culmination of learning experiences which students acquire over time. The quality of a school or district should be determined on how well this culmination of experiences prepares each and every student for their future endeavors, whether it be higher education or occupation. Quality then should be determined in large part not by the results of a single assessment given on a single day, producing a statistical average that is then translated into a letter grade. That, in essence, is what the proposed A through F methodology does. It labels campuses and districts arbitrarily without taking into consideration the holistic nature of these culminated educational experiences. In Killeen ISD, we began to decipher the A through F methodology, and immediately two questions began to resonate. First, what do these preliminary A through F ratings actually measure? What do they actually represent? When you look at Domain 3 and Domain 4, excessive absenteeism, Domain 3 being a linear regressive equation, it's incredibly complex and difficult to understand. Primarily based upon how well our economically most impoverished students are performing, based upon a cut point that is established, which allows districts to grow each year. It sounds great. If you look at the methodology, it's a little bit more difficult to decipher. But more importantly, this raises really the next question. And this is really a question that I believe all of our communities, our parents, our educational stakeholders should be asking. And that is, how does a proposed A through F rating system drive campus and district improvement? For this to be possible, I believe one must fully understand the methodology to begin with, and then know precisely how to respond. And this response will dictate, make no mistake about it, how our campuses and districts behave, how they deliver instruction, and how they, in essence, look going forward. In Killeen ISD, we believe in educating the whole child, the entire child, well beyond one standardized test score. We serve approximately 44,000 students across 54 campuses, all of which, under the current accountability system, have met every standard performance measure. 200. Pretty phenomenal achievement, if I do say so myself. However, I have numerous campuses right now, administrators asking the question, why are we being preliminarily rated low performing under this proposed A through F accountability system? Yes, what if ratings, but they are what they are. We have elected to take an approach to simply stick to our mission, which remains to teach so that students learn to their maximum potential each and every day. I'm going to encourage communities, stakeholders, those who are supporters of public education to really take a hard look at this proposed A through F accountability system and ask yourselves, is this really what we want for public education and for our districts and for our campuses throughout the great state of Texas? I appreciate again your time today, and I'll be glad to try to answer any questions during this session. Thank you.
And Dr. Kraft, thank you for mentioning that, because we will have a Q&A session at the end. So thank you for the reminder. I'd next like to introduce not just the Temple ISD superintendent, but the Region 12 Superintendent of the Year, Dr. Robin Battershell.
I want to preface my remarks by saying that the A through F system was never intended to align with the current accountability system. That was not its purpose, and it's important for us to understand that. Its intent was to provide supposedly a more meaningful accountability system. The release of the latest ratings, as Dr. Kraft said, were considered a trial balloon, and that's the wording that we've been given. And with that in mind, I truly hope that Commissioner Morath will take the comments and suggestions that are being given across Texas and utilize those to refine the system where it truly is of meaning to our public schools so that we can improve education for our children. My input is in two categories. One of those categories is communication and transparency, and my second one are the lack of controls for factors that are beyond public schools' control. So underneath communication and transparency, school districts, as Dr. Kraft said, we did not receive any information on the system prior to mid-December. So when we received the accountability tables, we didn't even know how to look at those. We didn't know how to use those accountability tables. We had no training, we had no reference points to consider our ratings. Additionally, the data tables that were finally released, not our ratings, but the accountability tables, they were released a few days before Christmas break. And so we had individuals probably in most of our school districts that sat there over Christmas break trying to figure out what they meant so that when we got our ratings, we could at least know what those meant to our individual school districts. Contrary to that, our legislators received those ratings a week prior to the public schools. And I guess for Commissioner Morath, if the intent of this is to truly help our children, to help our school districts, then give them to us with meaning and with a frame of reference so that we can utilize them for the intent and of which you have said. The lack of communication has led to much speculation about the true intent of the A through F system. Some of that speculation involves the privatization of schools. We don't know if that's true or not, but when your information is not clear and it's not concise and it's not transparent, which we are always under the gun in our local school districts to be very, very transparent, then it does lead to speculation. My second part underneath communication and transparency is we were told by Commissioner Morath that all districts had, and I will quote, a fighting chance to make an A. Statistically, this is almost impossible. I'll use Domain 1 as an example of that. Domain 1 is comprised of three areas. One area is the percentage of students that are passing the STAR. The second area is the percentage of your students that are post-secondary ready. And the third category are students that are meeting the advanced. And each of those are equally rated at this point in time, or equally weighted. 1/3 for the percentage of students passing, 1/3 for the percentage of students that meet post-secondary readiness, and 1/3 for students that are meeting that advanced standard. Mathematically, a school can have 100% of its students that pass the STAR test and make an F. And that inconsistency is the part that we grapple with in our local schools and in our districts today. My second category for input for Commissioner Morath is the lack of control for factors, or the lack of recognition of factors that are beyond district's control. And the three, one Dr. Kraft mentioned, and I'll mention two others. The percentage of students that are served by special education, the percentage of students that are served in our English language learner programs, and then again, our students that come to us coming from homes that are considered low socioeconomic. And I'm going to refer to the data release as, to talk about statistically again how this played out in this latest rating system. This morning I took the tables that were sent to us, the information that was sent to us, and we looked at the campuses that were rated an F, the campuses that were rated an F, not districts, but the campuses. And I'll use just one of the four domains, Domain 1. We were told that it should be equal across the board. It shouldn't be based upon the income level of students served. And for years, we've had various systems that could be absolutely correlated one-on-one with the income level of students. And this system, we were told, would combat that. However, statistically, this is what happened. Underneath Domain 1, for campuses in Texas that had 60% or fewer of their students that received free and reduced lunch, there were 72 campuses. Okay, keep that in mind, 72. In Domain 1, for campuses that had 60% or more of their students that received free and reduced lunch, there were 912. And I'm going to take another example. That's just one of several. For school districts, I'll use domain 2. I'll use a different domain. For districts that were 60% or fewer students on free and reduced lunch, there were 54 school districts. For districts that had 60% or higher students on free and reduced lunch, there were 89. And those are just two examples of many. In an effort to make our accountability system more meaningful and understandable, I asked Commissioner Morath, and I think we should hold Commissioner Morath and our legislators accountable, that when we look at this system, we need to look at our graduation rates, because ultimately the opportunities that are provided for students are determined by whether or not they graduate from high school. For our school district, we have 76% of our babies that are on free and reduced lunch, and we have tracked this, and what's really interesting is if I take the difference in income between the state average, which is I think 59%, and Temple ISD, which is 76%, and I take that percentage, if I look at test scores for our third grade children, the disparity between the state average and the Temple ISD average is exactly that difference. It's curious, huh? And then I go to fourth grade and it gets smaller, and I go to fifth grade and it gets smaller, and sixth grade and it gets smaller, and by the time they graduate, they're within 2 percentage points of the state average. The point of that is children, we as human beings develop differently, and we need a system that allows children to develop individually and as they are made, still holding us accountable for those graduation rates. Thank you.
Dr. Kraft represented the largest district in the area. Dr. Battershell and Waco ISD are large districts. We want to make certain that you hear from other size districts so you will know that this is not a large district concern. So we've asked Kevin Houchin from McGregor to speak as well.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. I won't go on much further about the issues that have already been brought out about the way that we embrace accountability as superintendents, the way our staff at each district embraces accountability. No sense in going further. You've also heard about the complexity of this system and the confusion of the system. What I thought I might do is give you a couple of real live examples of how this is impacting one of your local school districts. One of the domains is domain 4, that is about post-secondary readiness. And McGregor High School, as an example, 420 students. We received at the last accountability rating for academic performance 6 distinctions. We had great scores and had 6 distinctions. 7 is the maximum that you can get. I think that may have led the county. There may be some rebuttal from the group here, I don't know. But we were very proud of that. In other words, this is a high-performing high school. In mid-December, December 15th, as a matter of fact, we received a very prestigious award for college post-secondary readiness from the College Board. The College Board put us on its list of the Advanced Placement Honor Roll for our AP program, one of only 22 school districts in the state, the first Region 12 district to ever receive this award. The College Board, we feel like, knows something about college preparedness and post-secondary readiness. And yet we received a low-performing grade in Domain 4 in this A through F system. So you can see the confusion that might cause for my community as we've been touting the efforts of staff in this post-secondary readiness and improvement in our advanced placement program. So that's just one example of the confusion that we're dealing with. I also want to bring up a couple of other confusing points. In a couple of the domains, to get an A rating, you'd have to have a 99 score. Another domain, I believe 98 is the score to get an A. And I simply say that is, once again, the point of this was to be clear to all stakeholders about the campuses and their performance. And I bet for the non-educators in this room, if I ask you what is an A, 100% of you would say it's 90 to 100. And you say, what is a B? And you'd say 80 to 89. And yet that's not the case in this system. And so there's kind of some arbitrary ratings that are put in there. And I'll leave you with this thought. This A through F system and we don't want to be hypercritical about this, but you're hearing the problems that we have with the system. But we're not alone. 16 other states have had A through F systems implemented. And the research that comes from those 16 states shows that this has been a universally negative outcome. It's not getting the outcomes that were hoped for. In fact, Alabama is the latest state to roll their A through F system out. They did that on a Friday morning before Christmas with no fanfare at all. Just said, here it is, and let's walk away from it as fast as possible. And so obviously there are some concerns. So lastly, I'll just say we can do better than this system, and we look forward to working with all stakeholders to improve this system. We would love to work with the commissioner and the legislators to make this a better system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Houchin. Now representing rural districts would be Dr. J.R. Proctor, Axel ISD.
Thank you, Bonnie. I would also like to thank my colleagues that are here in a show of unity in the face of the attempt of this system to quantify the value that we provide as educators, whether it be rural or urban. So with the release of the A through F system, it must be acknowledged that the Texas Education Agency and the Texas legislature are in danger of losing their relevancy as a voice of assessing the state of Texas and the education system. Now, what gives me the right to say that they are in danger of becoming irrelevant in their assessment of value? Axtell High School, post-secondary readiness, 100% of our students have been accepted to an institution of higher learning. 100%, out in the sticks. Hundreds of thousands of dollars being given in scholarships to a small school of 42 graduates. And yet, we receive a C. This detachment from reality is why this system is going to fail. Because they cannot assess my child, they cannot assess my children in what they are doing on a daily basis. We're doing an A+ job. We're doing an A+ job. And I can tell you across this region, Region 12, with 70+ schools, we're doing an A+ job. We're taking every child that's being brought to us and we're educating them greater than just a general diffusion of knowledge. We're preparing them for the future. We're preparing them to make this world a better place. And so the things that I say may not be quite as politically correct as some of my colleagues. I will say this. If the Texas legislature and the Texas Education Agency don't want to become irrelevant, then not only do they have to, they make laws, we want them also to make sense. Thank you.
And our last superintendent who will be making comments will be Dr. George Kazanis, Midway ISD.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kane. It's kind of like very difficult to top that one. Thank you, Dr. Proctor. They asked me to kind of be the cleanup batter, and I want to say each one of them have done a fantastic job. I think sharing with you some specifics of some of the flaws in the system, but also just our overall feeling. And I keep debating on where to go as well. And as I said, I want to go over, just reiterate everything that they've said previously, but just understand members of the media and the members of the public that are here. I just want to speak to you, I guess right now as an educator. And it's my 26th year, and I really do not know, as an administrator, 23 years has been in school administration, and we've all gone from the teams to the toss to the tax to the star now, and it seems throughout my career we continually focus on a one day test, and we are continually trying to tell our stories about the wonderful things that we do with our students in our school programs. And there are many ways that have been allowed recently with permission to have a local community accountability system. But that is not talked about at all in this. It is going possibly given maybe up to a 10% portion of our A to F system. But we have countless number of hours we have spent developing what's most important to our local communities. And when you look at what's most important to our local communities, I would beg to differ that performance on the STAR test is going to be 90% or so of what's most important. There's other things that our local communities want to see our students excel in. And that could be from fine arts to your gifted and talented programs to your career and technology programs and on and things like that. That is part of that public school experience. And I feel like with this particular system in place, we're losing sight of that. And I also want to say, when you get preliminary reports, again, we receive these and it's said to please don't predict. Don't go out and try to predict what your scores will be. That's fine. It's supposed to be a legislative report. But what are we expected to do with it? We're teachers. We're educators. What are we expected to do with these preliminary reports? We want to begin that work in progress. If you look at any of the previous systems that we've had in place, you will notice a continual increase in the performance of your public schools. I was just looking at STAR performance and the number of campuses rated IR, and I believe, which is improvement required. And it was 1 percentage point, and again, it's cut in half or more as we've continued to work with that system. We have one that's in place that makes some sense to us. Either you're meeting the standard or you need to improve. You can look at the Met standard, and then from that you could look at different parts of it and see what areas that you want to focus on. We have this in place, and it's just, again, trying to determine what is the purpose. Why have we changed again? Why are we continue to spend millions and millions and millions of our tax dollars on a system that we have proven that has flawed? I wish I could tell you the exact number. The media can go back and research how much the Texas Education Agency fined the ETS, the testing coordinator, for flaws in the last year's administration of the test. That affects us as educators. That's what our reality is each and every day, is working through those systems. And yet again, here we are again, trying to decipher and understand the program. I wish I had information then that with this preliminary release that I could use. I wish I had then some things that we could go back and talk to our staff about. Again, just think of this, the best word I could use again is demoralizing. We face in the future in Texas, with the rising student population that we have, we're going to continue to face a teacher shortage. And we're going to continue to face obstacles as our state grows in its diversity, and as the state grows in the number of students of economic disadvantaged backgrounds. And so, again, I looked at it, and this is exactly what I predicted, is that when there's a group called Moak and Casey that has already examined preliminary these results, and again, on average, it's a C. All 4 domains, the average score is a C. And so that means that's average performance. So is that what they wanted to prove with this? Then why don't we talk about then what is the state's ranking in terms of its per student spending across the United States? I think it falls in the C to D range. So again, what is this data telling us? It's not telling us, in my view, anything different than I can use to improve. What happens is the day-to-day work of your dedicated teachers that work in the classrooms for the students. And as one of my colleagues mentioned to you before, it may not be that they initially pass that test in the 3rd grade, but if you follow that student, I bet they do. In 4th grade maybe 5th, or maybe not until 8th grade. But again, our teachers get the students where they need to be in order to pass the test. And so again, I just wanted to close with that, is that just think about what are we doing in our classrooms? What are we doing to our teachers to promote the profession? What are we doing to continue to encourage them to improve? That again falls back on my back. That again falls back on your local school districts. And all of us in this room that I see eyes, the folks, the dedicated educators behind me and those in front that I recognize, that is our calling, that is our mission, and we won't stop. I'm not going to let an A to F system, though, stop us in what we're supposed to do for our kids. So, thank you.
Well, you've gotten a lot of snippets of information about how each domain is scored. We have a lot of testing coordinators here, and trust me, they could make a presentation for 5 hours. I have limited them to 10 minutes, okay? They have practiced and practiced, so the testing coordinators will enjoy this. If you don't really like data, you can make it 10 minutes. We also have handouts, because we want you to understand just how complicated it is. I think Dr. Kraft talked about the multiple regression co-analysis. So we're going to try to, so 10 minutes? Oh, okay, get that down. Did you see that? Okay, are we ready to go? Okay. I would like to present Ms. Kim Ellis, who is the Assistant Superintendent for C&I in Waco ISD, and Tammy Weethorn, the woman behind the woman, who's our testing coordinator in Waco ISD. So, Ms. Ellis?
Thank you. I was asked to provide you with some visuals of what they have been talking about, the domains that you have heard about throughout. In the handout, you will find the very first slide there is representative of the TEA handout that you can find on the website. It gives an overview of all the domains that are going to be, that are being currently assessed, and the proposed system. Domain 1, as many have talked about, shows that we're 1 point for satisfactory, 1 point for post-secondary, and 1 point for advanced. But the new piece to this is the dividing by the 300. As was mentioned before, our children are expected now to achieve that advanced level. There's some examples are given on the right-hand side of various schools within the Region 12 district. School 1, who scored a 71% on this particular category because 60 was the cut point on the previous score. You will notice in the second column with the new A through F scoring system, that now translates to a 41 or a C grade. You move on to the middle one, School 3, 64%, which was a passing score in the current system that we have, but with the new scoring, that will be a 33 or an F. Domain 2. Domain 2 then shows growth. We were so pleased with Domain 2 in our district. Every single campus in Waco ISD met standard in Domain 2. We are moving children in the right direction. However, when you apply the new formula to that, it's actually not a new formula. It's just new cut scores. For instance, this year, you had to score a 32 or above to meet standard in Domain 2. The new score in the A through F system is a 53. That's correct, 53, a 21-point increase. With middle school, this year it was a 30. In the new A through F system, it will be a 45. For high school, the current system is a 17. In the new system, it will be 40. Domain 3. This is very interesting, and I will say that I would encourage you to make any sense of it. You'll need to go to the TEA website to look at the scatter plot chart at the top of the page, the second page, because this formula, this complex formula that you see indicated there, was based on a scatter plot with a line of best fit. Now, everybody understands that, right? And you'll notice the A through F rankings that were given on that particular slide shows how they determined which scores would be given. I was asked to make this simple. Folks, it's not simple. There's not anything simple about it. It is a complex system, and the ratings that are applied to that is what makes it the most challenging. The system itself has some favorable parts, but the scoring that's applied to that, the grading that's applied to that, is the problem. Domain 4. Domain 4, post-secondary readiness. You've heard several superintendents who've talked about this particular measure. You will notice for our elementary campuses, the only thing that counts is the chronic absenteeism. Do teachers control a student's absence? In our middle school, it's chronic absenteeism plus the dropout rate. And then you have several variables for high school with that. What I've given you on the next page is the full domain 1 through 4 rating charts from TEA, so that you can see where some of these scores have landed and what it takes to move from an F to an A in the new proposed system. What I have also shown on those last 3 slides are some examples of schools within Region 12. They are simply listed as school A, B, and C, or well, whatever they're listed. I don't remember what I put on the slide, actually. This shows an elementary campus who this last year scored a 67, which is passing, a meeting standard in Index 1, but now has a D. 36 in Index 2, which 32 was passing, but that's now an F. 38, which was passing standard in Index 3, which the target was 28, they now have a D. And 12, being the target, in Index 4, they had a 30, it's now a C. Middle school campus. This campus had 5 distinctions given to them by the state. And you see the overall rankings across the bottom of the screen above the red arrows. They had a C, a D, a B, and a D in the different domains. And last but not least, this is the high school. McGregor, may I go ahead and tell them it's McGregor High School? He said he was going to talk about it. But look at the score. I mean, that was my whole point. 6 distinctions in addition to the College Board honor roll, folks. How in the world do you get an F? The bottom line is, with our schools in all of our regions, across this entire region, across all of our schools, we have so many teachers and staff who this is our life work. And we deserve, but most importantly, our students deserve a better accountability system.
As you can tell, everyone here who is in education feels very passionately about doing right things. You didn't hear one person say, how do we get out of accountability? You didn't hear one person say, we don't care about things like this. You heard person after person who spoke for everyone who's up here that we don't care, we don't fear accountability. We embrace accountability. But it needs to well represent what's going on. We want to know if our schools aren't doing well. We want to know if we've got holes in our system. But this system, this A through F grading, does not show us that. So with that, I would like to invite, not just for me Q&As, so be warned back here. Questions from the media, from anybody who would like to ask a question?
Well, I'd like to ask everybody.
Bill Whitaker, Waco Trip.
Yeah, Bill Whitaker, Waco Trip. You all got these just before Christmas, I guess. Is that it?
Actually,
After Christmas?
and when everything was closed.
Yeah, right. I was going to ask, has anyone had a chance in the last several days to contact a state legislator who represents your district to find out if he or she understands this or maybe can make sense of all this?
I see some head shakings.
Okay,
Who's not
yeah.
presented, who's talked to legislators?
We tried to set it up. Well, we attempted to call her. No offense from our legislator. They're out of town right now, and then they report to Austin next week. We were invited to come to Austin to visit with him about that, and so I think we intend to do that soon. So it was just an untimely, opportunity. So we'll go down to Austin and visit.
I also saw some head shaking. Who else has talked to legislators?
Yeah, I attended a dinner last night with our legislator.
Microphone.
Microphone? Yeah, microphone.
Okay.
There's one over there as well. So push the button. You can take it off. Yeah, there we go. I attended a dinner last night with our legislator, and we had a conversation about this specifically. And we're both trying to digest the same information about the same time. So there's a lot of research that has to go into what the metrics look like and how do we disseminate this information to our staff members and also our communities.
When you had dinner with your legislator, I'm curious who picked up the check, but
It was actually appreciation for our Representative Aycock. So.
oh, he gets a lot of high marks. Well, but what I was going to ask is, is he satisfied with what is the intent of the program when he helped pass this thing? What would that was the question that was brought up here a couple of times. What are they trying to prove with this system? There may be something good that they're trying to prove with it. What is it?
Yeah, we didn't actually dive into that piece specifically. We're just looking at what does it mean. We're still trying to wrap our minds around what does it actually mean as we're going through kind of this release of scores, electronic scores. So we didn't dive into that conversation.
Thank you.
Can anybody else answer? Did anyone else talk to a legislator who said, oh, this was our dream and this is how it's supposed to work out? We'll assume it's because they didn't have time to talk to them, not because they talked to them and couldn't get an answer. Oh, Dr. Batterfield.
Our representative and senator from the last session, the senator did not, or retired, and the representative was not reelected. So I did speak with the incoming representative and senator. And the incoming representative more so, and I think he's trying to figure it out, at this point. He knows that there's a problem. He's that was Representative-elect Hugh Shine. And,
Yes.
And so he's just trying to find out information right now.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Shelley.
Conlon with the Waco Trib. This is for whoever. How do these letter grades impact the conversation of school vouchers?
Think before you speak.
You got a microphone. There's one down there at the end.
I'll answer the question.
Push in the button. Just push that.
Today's with mine. I scored a D, I think. The question was, how does this correlate with the school voucher conversation? I'll answer that question by posing the question. I believe that the timing of the release of these ratings is impeccable. As we get ready to enter another legislative session, we know that education savings grants, vouchers is going to be a topic of this legislative session, and so I think that this coincides very eloquently.
A press release is coming out from Waco ISD, and actually my quote is that I feel pretty confident that if vouchers are put in, this system will go away. I feel the same way, that this system is used. There are things put in place that just keep making public education being such a bad light. And you try to fix this and they move this and you try to fix that. So so my opinion too. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Rissa Shaw with KWTX.
Wait, say that again.
Rissa Shaw with KWTX. I was a pretty good student. I got A's and B's, so I can imagine that it's probably not fun to get D's and F's. But playing devil's advocate here, it's hard to imagine. Are they out to to get you? These are people, I'm sure, with kids of their own. Aren't they trying to do something good here? And is there anything positive? Is there any way this could make some of these great school districts even better?
That's a fair question. I think a fair answer is this. Across the state already, numerous districts from the north, east, south, and west regions are asking the legislature to repeal House Bill 2804. That includes districts such as Coppell, Highland Park, and also Asheville ISD, La Vega ISD. So it doesn't matter whether it's a small school or a large school. It doesn't matter if it's a school that is highly rated or needs improvement. They're all asking that this bill be repealed. So that should answer the question, that the grading mechanism is not seen as valid from the A student or the F student. That should help.
Anybody else?
And you're getting really opinions on this one. I think legislators, educators, we all grapple with what do you do with kids that don't succeed? And the elephant in the room that people don't talk about are the things that happen outside of school that we have to control inside of school. For our legislators, and we just did with Representative Carter, probably 3 or 4 months ago, and he kept referring back to the Washington D.C. schools and how many issues were faced by the Washington D.C. schools, and that he really saw the privatization or a voucher program or tax credits or whatever semantics you want to put in the blank as something that maybe would fix that. And so I don't know that there's ill intent. I think there is what do we do, and that is an easier thing to talk about than to talk about a home where a child is abused or they don't send them to school or a multitude of things that we deal with every day.
I just also want to add about the voucher system. I think most of us probably have set legislative priorities. I know Dr. Kane in the greater Waco area, one of our first priorities is, yes, we oppose the voucher system until that our public schools are adequately funded. Until that the legislature takes the time and spends the effort to look at the system that the Texas Supreme Court, even though they didn't rule it unconstitutional, said it was a top-to-down Band-Aid approach to it, that it had major flaws, and that it was time to fix. And so I think in terms of let's prioritize our work at the legislative body should be to look at a fair and equitable funding system for all public schools. Then we could look at maybe this particular type of a change to an accountability system. Then maybe we could look at if vouchers are appropriate or not. We're just, again, they're out of priority in my view, and then also what has been approved by our local chambers and our local business folks as well through our Greater Waco legislative priorities is no to vouchers until we get a school finance system in place.
And my response would be, just as we have said, my response to you is yes. We are for an accountability system, and we are for a rigorous accountability system because we have high expectations for all of our students. It's that this system isn't doing that.
I'd just like to mention, we would like an accountability system that serves a great purpose, and that purpose would be to be diagnostic and show us where our strengths and weaknesses are so that we can move forward and and implement strategies to fix those things. That's what, this is as Dr. Kazanis mentioned, this is a one-day test. And once again, as Robin said, things external to the school district can impact that one-day test. That's not really helping us with implementing sound educational strategies that would improve our school districts. And so that's a great concern. The other thing I would mention on kind of this one-day gotcha testing, high-stakes testing I'll call it, is why are our school districts growing? My district has grown 30% in the last 10 years. Why is it growing if there's a problem? If my constituents are not happy with my school district, and you can hear that from everyone else up here, I'm sure, if they're not happy, why are they moving to McGregor and joining our school district? And so I think those two things need to be considered.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Stephanie Escobar with KXXV. I was just wondering, you mentioned a lot that this system is very confusing. You mentioned a lot that this system was very confusing. I would like to know, how do you think this impacts students directly? And is there any group of students who would be affected more by this change?
These guys have been skating down here. And I've noticed that, including Dr. Hope. You're shaming this side of the room, okay? I won't give you that chance. Come on. Thank you. Saved.
There's a rule when you teach kids, and that is you always teach them and then you evaluate them. I don't think there's been any teaching done prior to the administration or the application of A through F. It's a test that came out of left field, an evaluation tool that hasn't been very clear and hasn't been well discussed. And I will tell you that it's my understanding that to earn or to determine one grade, it takes 42 pages of size 9 single-spaced font to determine one of the A through F ratings. Folks, I don't know about you, but if we were to take children in a classroom and assign them 42 pages of work to do before they could ever get a grade, and it was written in such a way that they didn't understand it or had never been explained to them, I don't believe they would succeed. When we talk about kids who are affected by this, I think there's an effect on every child we serve. Because children take tremendous pride in the teachers that they know, love, and support them and teach them each and every day. When you talk about our communities, teachers are some of those people that are held in the highest esteem in the community. They're very well respected. And so you provide them assessment. We have every school in our district met standard. We have earned more academic distinctions than we've ever earned. We have kids that have gone to national competitions and won in state competitions, and they've done all kinds of things. And TEA counts us as a very good district. The federal government counts us as a very good district in Commerce Cove. But when you look at our grades under A through F, we are average at best. And so our children look at that and they say, well, I'm proud to be a Bulldog. I'm proud to be from Copper's Cove. But Copper's Cove is just kind of average now. The problem is all of the other districts around us are average as well. So there's no opportunity to really highlight the success and look at the things that kids hang their hats on. And I will tell you, kids that don't have meaningful adults in their lives, those adults many times are provided in a school setting, and they're the only people who really advocate for some of our children. And so our children look up to those people. They rely on those people. They're encouraged by those people. They're loved by those people. And now, an issue like this can cause our kids to look at that and say, well, that person is not really who I thought that person was, because we're not the kind of school I thought we were. So I think that there is some impact on every kid, but there's also impact on people who have devoted their entire lives to educating children. Folks, I don't know about you, but in life we find that there are people who get very few recognitions and even fewer rewards. And I would say that educators are one of those groups. That they don't get the recognition for the effort and the energies and the expertise that they put forth each and every day to make a difference in the life of every child. And this is a detriment to them as well. Some of them have worked 35 or 40 years making a difference in the lives of children. When you talk to adults in the community, they say, I had Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, and you know what? They made a difference in my life. And now these educators are sitting here and they're calling into question, is this really what my life's work has amounted to? I'm just okay. I'm not exceptional. Maybe I didn't make a difference in the lives of those kids. I agree with my peers that we are a system that loves and relishes the opportunity to demonstrate success. Give us a challenge and we will rise to it. But you have to clarify what that challenge is. You have to be able to detail to us how you succeed, and you have to say, this is what we're going to use to do it. Dr. Battershell talks about the students in her district that start at a disadvantage, and by the time they get to high school, they're graduating on track. Folks, that's a victory. That's a victory for us as educators. It should be a victory in our communities that young people who start deficient in skills can master those skills and achieve and succeed and compete at the same level as everyone else, even if it takes them 12 months to get there, 12 years to get there. This doesn't do that. This is not a growth model that evaluates kids from where they start to where they are. This is a snapshot that catches them at their worst and then displays that and says, this is who you are. Well, I'm going to tell you, in today's world, there are lots of people in social media that catch the worst of people. And I would encourage you to think about this. This one snapshot does not define who we are as educators, and certainly cannot detail the changes and the benefits that our kids receive from public education. And the system needs to be fair to everyone. Doesn't matter where the kid starts, it matters where they finish. And our goal is that every kid finishes well.
I don't think any of us can top that or would want to try, so why don't we, unless there's a burning question, we do have a burning question.
My question has to do with the value of a graduated system as opposed to sort of the old pass-fail model. I'm just wondering if you just don't worry about the accountability, if you just look at it from an informational standpoint, isn't there an advantage to having a high school senior who's doing very well in their own school, knowing that their school might be at a C level, whereas when they get to college, they'll be competing against students who are in the top of their class in an A school, and just to know how far you have to go, kind of thing?
Well, I think that's kind of one of the unfortunate things. If we all want our communities to grow and we want families to move here. So if you look at, in the information age, so you're a family and you go to Google and you look up, okay, what high school, AC, we reflect our community, so we need the grades to accurately reflect. I'm not saying they need to be inflated, but to accurately reflect. And I think anyone who feels like their school is accurately reflected is either going to be working on fixing it or so. But the issue is it's not accurately reflected. I mean, how could you not want to go to a regular high school and after listening to Kevin, but if you just look in the paper, it's like, I don't know that I want to move there. They're not doing so hot in post-secondary readiness. And I think what Dr. Burns said, I mean, just like Kim's presentation, where the campuses can be doing well, but the district doesn't. With Dr. Burns, you have a classroom, a teacher who all of her kids pass, but yet if you drill down to her class, well, that was really a C. How do you explain that to that teacher? Every one of your kids passed that test thanks to your hard work, but that was a C in our eyes because of a multiple regression model. So I don't think I answered your question. You want to give someone else a shot at it? Okay. Okay, who wants to try that? Okay.
I want to make one comment, not about it.
Okay.
One of the problems with your scenario that you described is that the domain 4 data is based on the 14-15 school year. So when your scenario of a senior wondering, the rating, I mean, this is from the class that graduated in June of 2015. Am I correct in that, Kim? And so the data is not useful to that senior that's sitting in the classroom right now. And so that's a whole other issue with our accountability system. With the volume of information that we send to TEA with our PEIM system. Are you all familiar with our Public Education Information Management System, PEIMS? We send volumes of information. Why can't we get more real-time feedback? Why can't we get more diagnostic information, as I mentioned? We're putting scores, we're putting letter grades on students that graduated 2 years ago.
One last question. I'm getting the look from Bruce Geetson. Yes, sir.
My name's Curtis Quillen with KCEN. I'm just wondering, have we figured out what kind of an impact you can tell a parent this is going to have on their child in school yet?
Anyone have their parent letter or have a parent meeting planned?
We have one.
Oh.
We have a letter, and I'll be glad to share it with you. And what we're doing is celebrating what we know is the current accountability system. What you see in the A through F rating is a system in the process of development, which is, I don't understand why we would provide that when you're working on it, but the state has. I think I know why, but the state has provided it. But we'll be glad to share our letter with you about the things that have taken place. And we just encourage our parents to be part of the discussion. If you have a concern, let us know. If you want to talk about this, we'll be glad to visit with you about what this means long term. Cut it off. Fading here? I'm fading. It's all right. I've got a letter. But we have a letter that we'll be glad to share.
Keep talking.
We have a letter we'll be glad to share with you, and I think it's posted on our website, or will be posted on our website. And we are sharing all of the great things that take place in our district. And I'll tell you, if this system doesn't change, it'll cause us to be even better. So we're not afraid of the A through F system. We just think that right now in the current state, it's unfair. We think that it has not been shared appropriately, nor has it been described correctly or information about it accurately shared with schools. And so we do embrace the idea that we need to know where kids are and how kids are performing and how well teachers are doing. But it has to be a system that's transparent. It can't be based on what goes on behind closed doors. Everyone, including parents, need to know that this is a fair and equitable system for every kid.
One other thing, I think I just recognize one charter school here, and I don't want the media to think that public schools have a concern with this, because you always hear that charter schools are compared to public schools and how much better they're doing. And I'm not going to talk to Dr. Newman about who's doing better. That's not my point. My point is, this is how public schools feel about that system. And my question is, are we out of line with charter schools? And feel free.
No, not at all. So we, as a charter school, fall underneath the same academic accountability structure, and we are watching it in the same way. I think my colleagues here have done an amazing job at sharing the concerns that we've had. I had a staff member mention to me, and I think it's very succinct and puts it great. They said, it seems like you would almost have an easier system than this if you just did an average income analysis and evaluated the school based on the average income from that. And so that's my greater concern, is being a low-income focused school. That's our mission. We are there to close gaps. And if you look across our district, you can look from elementary, where they come in years behind. You can look all the way up to high school, where they're achieving associate's degrees before they graduate high school. We are performing our mission. We have students, we have enrollment, we have waiting lists. We are doing what we said we are doing, and yet there's some pretty great concerns with what we've seen so far. So again, we're absolutely for accountability. We all share the same academic accountability structures here. My hope is that it's just really analyzed. Matter of fact, I think there was a question about teachers in the classroom. I'm leaving here to go meet with a group of my teachers at a school who saw their results, and they are quite upset because they have been busting their tail, making a difference for their kids, and our outcomes, our local outcomes show it every time we look at them. And I have to go give them a rah-rah and tell them that they are doing the right thing, and yet they're kind of less than average. So that's the thing for us, for a charter school. Again, charter, public, we all feel the same way, that it's not the accountability piece that we have a problem with. This just doesn't reflect what we're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Newman, Rappaport Academy. I want to thank everyone for being here, for your questions. I know these superintendents.
JP wants to have another word.
I do have one more thing to say, and I think that it's important as we talk about how this affects students and how this affects communities and teachers. I did talk about whether it's relevant information that's being provided to us, and the true reality is that we want this to be reflective of the value that we are providing. And when it's so far detached from that reality that the parents that I've already talked to see that and say, that's not who we are, they dismiss it. And then it does not become constructive in building up our public schools and building up our teachers, and most importantly, building up our students. And so you asked about, a rating system that a student could walk into a university knowing where they stand. That's a great idea. Then we have to develop that system, because currently this one is so detached from reality that it's just not useful. And I think everyone feels that way.
Thank you. These guys will hang around if you, I know a lot of times you like to do individual conferences. Oh, somebody's waving at me. Oh, okay. So, thank you very much for coming. Please feel free to talk to anybody individually. And thank you for your time. And we would appreciate any support you can give us in getting a great accountability system, because we want one. Oh, thank you. This will be filmed and put on Waco ISD TV. If you would like, I'm probably you guys more, if y'all would like a link
to put on your website, you just let us know, and we can link it up. Region 12, same thing, so that your community can we can help inform them as well. Going once, going twice, thank y'all very much.